Today we're starting chapter 7, entitled Percent and Probability. So we're going to be talking all about percentages, which kind of relate to rates and ratios like we talked about last chapter. So we're talking about percents, and then probability is going to be using percentages, and we'll get to that later on in the chapter. So for today we are just starting with percents and fractions. Again, fractions we've been talking about for a couple of chapters now, and we're going to start relating them to percents. So we've related them to decimals, we related them to rates and ratios, now it's time to relate them to fractions. So first we need to know what is a percent. A percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. So for instance, when you get a test back, typically you want to know what the percentage is. You want to know out of 100, what did you get? Even if the test isn't out of 100, you want to know what your percentage was. So it's 95% out of 100%, because the highest percentage is 100. So you want to make sure you have that copied down. And we're going to just take a look at one quick example of what is a percentage. Or how do we write percentages as fractions. So if I say, write 50% as a fraction in simplest form. We can easily do that by saying 50% means it's out of 100. So we have 50 out of 100. I can reduce that by 10 initially and say that's going to be 5 out of 10. I can reduce it again by 5 and say that's 1/2. So in simplest form, it's going to be 1/2. So for percentages, if they give you percent, all you do is write it over 100 and simplify as you can. So here we could divide by 10s and 5s, there's going to be a lot of it. 100 is even, so you might be dividing by 2s. So this is where it's going to be important to know the factors of 100, so you know what you can divide by. So let's take a look at what happens, because sometimes I give bonus points on these tests. And you might end up with something that's over 100. So how do I write that as a fraction if I end up with a percentage that's over 100? So for instance, if I write 125% as a fraction in simplest form. Again, 125, I want to put it over 100. So we have 125 over 100. Now, I can make that a mixed number by saying that's going to be 1, and then we have 25 left out of 100. And now I can reduce that. Divide them both by 25, and I get 1 1/4. So if you have a whole number, that means you have something that's 1 whole percent, and then more in addition on top of that. So that's how that works. If you have over 100%, you have 1 whole, and then a fraction of that beyond it. So for instance, let's take a look at a couple more of these. So we'll call this A, and let's say we have B. I want to do this again with 97%. 97%, I can write that as 97 out of 100. We want to know, can I divide 97 and 100 by anything that's the same? I can't. That's it. That's as far as it goes, because 97 is a prime number, or at least it doesn't have any relationships to 100. And then let's do one more. We'll do 135%. So if I want to write 135% as a fraction, I would write that as 135 over 100, which would be 1 and 35 over 100. Reduce them both by 5, so I get 1 and 7 over 20. Now I want to go the opposite direction. I'm going to give you a fraction, and we're going to write it as a percentage. So this time we want to know, how can I write 9/20 as a percent? What you want to do is almost use proportions that we talked about last chapter. So I can say 9/20 is something out of 100. So what is that something? So we're setting a proportion. I want to know, what is that something out of 100? So we're looking for 20 times what gives me 100? Well, that's 20 times 5. So if I do this times 5, what do I have to do up here? Times 5. So 9/20 is 45 out of 100, which means it's 45%. So once it's out of 100, whatever's on top, that's your percentage. Now, I can do that again with mixed numbers. We can look and we can say I have 2 9/10. And I'm going to write that as a percentage. Okay, so we need to write this in terms of an improper fraction. So 10 times 2 is 20 plus 9 is going to give me 29 over 10. And I want to know that's what out of 100? 10 times 10 is 100. So multiply the top by 10 and we get 290. Even though it's bigger, it's still fine. 290%. That's all let's do it. Your homework for tomorrow, that we'll be doing in class again. Let me get rid of some of this. Your homework will be on page 368. And I want you guys to do numbers 12 through 34. 12 through 34. So that is your homework assignment for tomorrow.